Hello, welcome to this video. I crafted a castle out of XPS foam for 28mm wargaming, and I made a couple of videos on how I did this. In this one I take you back to the beginning of the project and I'll show you how I made some of the basic elements for it. I started out with some sketches, and these are just to have a general idea of where I want to go with the build. I don't follow an exact plan. I really like to find out what I want to do along the way while building. I always use XPS foam for crafting. I started this build with the main entrance and the relief above it. The dragon was based on an actual existing medieval image. Above it I made some tails and fire, and below some claws and wings. The way I made this relief is actually quite simple. First I crafted in all the lines with a pencil, and then I started pushing back areas that fell outside of the drawing. In this case I used the tip of some pliers for that, which I simply had laying around. You can use something else too, of course. To push back finer areas I used this fine clay sculpting tool. And here we have the finished relief. I did one more thing though. I made some cracks in it. I simply drew them in with a pencil. I did make a mistake with the measurements unfortunately, so I had to build a new one. That's this one. This one ended up in the final build, and it's made in the same way as the other one. Here you see the final painted version of it. I also built some other reliefs for the castle. Here's an example, and it's made in the same way as the other ones. And now I'm going to show you how I made some of the walls and windows for the castle. I already built one wall before I started recording this video, but no problem, I'm copying it here so I can take you to the steps anyway. Normally you could copy the window by tracing it, but since I already put a window frame in it, I had to measure it this time and write it again. After tracing the window, I cut it out with the hot wire cutter. And after this I make the window frame. I trace the shape of the window on a thin piece of foam. And next I draw a Gothic window design that I found online. When cutting out really fine details, I always dial back the temperature on the hot wire cutter enough so that it can work really slowly and precisely. And there we have our cutout window frame. I will soon make some more details on it. First I draw some tiles outside of the window. I test fit the window frame and it's alright, and now I will make the details. I do this by writing lines around each individual shape in the frame. This will give it some detail and some depth. Let me show you a picture of the finished window frame to show you what I mean. Here you can see that those lines that I drew actually work. Now that the window frame is finished, I just glue it in place. And the last thing I do for this window is make a window sill. I simply cut the little strip. I cut it off at an angle. And I write some tiles on it. And that's it, the window's finished. Now I still have to cut out the little windows, and you see me copying again by measuring and drawing. And in this case that's because those windows are a bit too narrow to trace well, so that's why I do it like this. You also see me drawing the outside of the windows first before cutting out the shapes. And the reason for that is that it's really difficult to draw lines right next to an edge. So that's why I do this the other way around. These cuts came out a little bit rough, so I'm smoothing them a bit. I'm correcting with my knife and I'm smoothing them with the shaft of my refillable carpenter's pencil. And here I'm marking the positions where my bricks are going to be and drawing lines for the rows of bricks. On the corners of all the walls there are going to be some strips. These represent lines running from the bottom to the top of the castle. And I mark here where those strips are going to be so that I know which space I have left to divide my bricks over. When, say, the basic drawing for the bricks is done, I always go around all the bricks a few more times to make them all like, say, individual bricks instead of a bunch of horizontal and vertical lines. I hit everything with a small rock to give it a stone-like imprint and texture. After that, I again go over all the bricks. And I make some cracks. If you write the same lines a few times, the cracks get deeper, or if you press harder on the pencil. Now it's time to attach the strips. Two broad ones first. And on top of those go two narrow ones. Since the glue dries quite slowly, I pin down the strips so I can continue working on them right away, because I want to ruin them too. For this I use my knife, a pencil, my hands, and I also hit it with that small rock again. When doing work like this, don't be too afraid. You cannot do too much that fast, so maybe pause every once in a while and look at what it looks like at that moment and then continue, or not. And our wall is done, and here's the result. Here you see it in a setup with other pieces of wall. And here's the final painted result. I made some rosette windows for the castle too, and I will show you how I did that now. I basically made a drawing onto a thin piece of foam again, and with a really sharp pencil I wrote again and again over the areas that I wanted to be cut out until the pencil went through and those areas were cut out. The front, when you do it like this, looks great, but the back really looks like crap. And since I wanted those windows to look good from both inside and outside the castle, I had to come up with a solution for this. I taped two plates onto each other. I made a drawing on the top plate, and once again with a sharp pencil I cut totally through the shape that I wanted to have cut out. Only this time I also cut through the bottom plate. So now there you have a reference of a cutout shape, which you can complete with the rest of the drawing. I cut out both of the shapes, pasted them with the backs to each other, and then you get this element, which looks good from both sides and which you can insert into a wall. Here's the final painted version of it. I built some arches and columns too, to represent the ruins of a much larger structure that had once been connected to the tower. First I made a two-dimensional drawing onto a piece of foam, then I cut out the shape under the arch and I drew some bricks above it. I used the cutout shape to create an identical arch right next to it. After this I started by cutting away some of the bricks that I drew before on top of the arches, and soon I started to add more detail, more lines into the bricks. I started pasting bricks onto the sides, and I added more stuff like more bricks and remains of sort of decorative elements. Here's the totally finished version, painted, weathered, vegetation added. And finally a little video where you can see some more arches that I've built. I'm ending this video with some images of the totally finished but yet unpainted castle. I really like to show it this way, and I think it suits this video really well. I've uploaded more videos on working on this castle, so if you like it, please check them out. I want to thank you for watching, and for now, bye bye.